I was working on this logo and it made me think of the importance of properly outlining fonts and then also being able to scale anything that has an outline or what's known as a stroke in Illustrator properly. So that's what this video is going to cover. So when I'm talking about the outlining, I mean this, and in layman's terms it is called an outline, but again, in Adobe Illustrator, that is known as a stroke. Now, if you don't need to outline or stroke a font, then don't do it. But sometimes conceptually or for whatever reason, it just seems like the right thing to do. So let's talk about the right way to do it. But first, let me show you what happens if you don't do it the right way. So we're just going to take this word that I just typed out here, and I'm going to change flip-flop the fill and the stroke. So now it has a stroke on it, and then we'll just put a fill color in here, and I'll just choose a bright red color. And let's say that you want a pretty hefty stroke on there. What hopefully you notice is that it starts to destroy the integrity of the font. So you can see this real harsh little bit here. In fact, it helps to kind of compare it to the one without a stroke on it. So you see the beauty of this sweep here, going from thick down to thin, and here that's just totally compromised, and you can see evidence of it all over the place. There are two ways to avoid compromising the text when you want to stroke on it. One way is converting the text into a shape which you may recognize as outlining the font. The problem with this is it's no longer a font after you do that. You can no longer kern it, correct spelling errors, add punctuation, anything like that. So the best way is the way that I'm going to show you. As I go through and show you the steps, at the first time you hear it, it sounds kind of complicated. So I like to stress that all you're doing is simply making a copy of the text on top of itself, using the bottom copy for the stroke and the top copy for the fill. Fill color in this example is red, but if you wanted it to look like it didn't not have a fill color, then you would just use white as the fill color so that when it's printed, whatever color the paper is would show through. Okay, I'm going to clean this up a little bit here. I'm going to put this bad copy off to the side so we can compare it later. I'll just delete this, and then we'll just go through the steps one at a time here. So first step is to type out the word or words that you are going to do. Size them appropriately. And then put the stroke that you want on the word at about the size that you think you're going for. And I'm not paying any attention to the bad stuff that I told you about before, but say that's about the thickness you want extended on here. Now, we are going to double that size stroke. So it's 4. I'm going to turn it all the way up to 8, which is really bad here. But this is about the overall size it's going to become when we finish this technique. And then what we want to do is adjust our kerning. So we're going to ignore the ugliness of the font, but just look at the spaces in between each letter form. So that one feels a little bit tight here. So we're going to go into the kerning, bring that up. And maybe this one needs to come up just a little bit here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, next step is we're just simply select this, do a edit copy, then an edit paste in front. Now it doesn't look like anything's happened, But if I click and drag here a little bit, you can see what happens is there is exactly a copy on top of the other copy. So I'm going to Command Z that to put it right back on top. Now all you have to do is turn off the stroke on the one that's on the front. And automatically when there's two things stacked right on top of each other, when you click on it, you're going to be selecting the one that's on top. We're just going to go over here, click on the stroke, click on this none icon, and now if we compare the two, let's make them the same size. So we'll figure out what size this one is, and we'll just copy that size to this one. And we'll take the magnifying glass and zoom in there a little bit. You can see the difference is clear, that this one still has all of the beauty, and this one, the text is destroyed. Now, if we want to make a change to it, like let's say for example that we notice that parts of it, the kerning could be a little bit better, rather than try to kern the top one and the bottom one, what I found is just really analyze where you want to go with it. And let's say I feel like I need 2 more clicks there. I'm just going to select the top one, delete it, put my cursor back in here, go to the kerning, adjust it, and then it's just simply a matter of repeating the last couple steps of your copy, your paste in front, and removing the stroke. So you can see that's a pretty straightforward, simple approach to this technique. Now that we have that completed, now let me talk about whenever you have something with a stroke on it and you want to scale it, and it is something precious like a logo or a logo type, they need to look the same whether they're on a business card or on the side of a bus. So that means when the logo type, in this case, gets bigger, the stroke needs to get bigger equally with it, and the same thing when it scales down. And let me just show you an example of that with, I'll just use a circle so we can kind of get the idea of maybe a logo in our heads with that. So let's say that this is our very generic logo, and we're going to put a stroke on it and a fairly thick stroke. And now we just want to show our client that this would work at a very small size on a business card. So we copy it over, we scale it down, and we say, okay, look, it works. But hopefully you've already noticed it, that this and this are not scaled versions of each other. Why? Because over here the stroke looks huge, and over here the stroke looks like what we expect it to look like. So now we'll tackle that same issue with this. So what we are going to do, in fact, let's just see it one time here the bad way. And now that we have the font, both copies of it correct, we should go ahead and group them together. Then that way when we get one, we get the other. And we're going to scale this down incorrectly first. So hopefully without even zooming in, you can see how different the two of them look. And we'll just put this off to the side for comparison's sake. And now we're going to make a slight change in the program. We're going to go find in the tools on the left the scale tool, which is about 8 items down. It's also housed with the rotate tool and 2 other tools. We're going to change it to the scale tool just by hovering over and releasing. Then we're going to double click on the tool itself, and that brings up this option here, and we are going to check scale and stroke effects. Click OK. We'll now option drag to make a copy, and then we'll go to the corner, hold down the shift key to constrain the proportions, the option key to center it, and we'll make that about the same size as this one, and then we'll look at all 3 of these together. And we can see that the very top option and the very bottom option are indeed scaled versions of each other, and this was just totally wrong. All right, in this last step, I'm going to show you how to make this logo as bulletproof as possible if you were to pass it on to your client or a junior designer. So what we want to do now is expand this, is what it's called in the program, so that it is no longer type and that it no longer has an actual outline. It's still going to look the same, but we're going to get rid of all those properties that I just mentioned. So I'm going to make a copy of it off to the side just in case we need that later. I'm going to select this and I'm going to go to Object and then Expand. And it won't let me select stroke, so be aware of that. It means that we're going to have to do this in 2 steps. So we click OK, and you can see that something has changed, right? If we click on it, we can tell just the way it's selected, and if we look over in properties, we can tell that we no longer have our type option. So it's no longer text, but if we click over here, you can see that it shows there's a fill, and then it's kind of confused about the stroke. So that just means we need to go back up here one more time and go Object, Expand, and do it one more time, and this time you can see that stroke is checked. We'll click OK. Now if we click away, click back on here, we can see that there is no stroke on it. So basically what that means is that the red and the black are both fills now, no stroke. So if your client were to scale this up or down, even if this option scale, stroke, and effects is turned off, it's still going to scale properly because the program no longer sees that outline of the font as a stroke. So those are all the precautions that you want to take when working with logo type and logos in general, and especially if there is a stroke involved.